Thank you. Thank you. Well, good morning to all of you. What a treat to be back. Reverend Green is exactly right. Coming to Mount Neboh is coming home for me. Reverend Green is like my guardian angel. When I needed someone to believe in me, and I needed someone to go first to support me in my political race, you know, nobody wants to go first. People go second, people go third, but nobody wants to go first. And I needed someone to stand up and show some faith and trust and believe in me. And Reverend Green was the first one. And he has such credibility. He has such credibility that when Reverend Green came, then the floodgates opened and people started to come and they said, oh, Reverend Green is with you. Well, then. But it was Reverend Green first. Now, Reverend Green looked a little different back then when he came. I don't want to touch on any sensitive subjects here, especially in front of Reverend Green, but he looked different than he looks now. I think something's going on. I think he's planning a second career, I think he's going to be a male model and a reverend at the same time. He is now a lightweight, heavyweight for Governor Cuomo. That's what I call him. But I also agree with the Reverend's point about the parade, because basically I agree with whatever the Reverend says. And moving the parade sounds like a good idea to me, and I want you to know, Reverend, I'm with you on that, and I'll march on Saturday, I'll march on Sunday. But I thank the Reverend for giving me a few moments of your time today. This is going to be an important week. Every week is important, but this is going to be an especially important week. Pope Francis is coming to New York. And Pope Francis is important to the Catholics that are in this state, but Pope Francis really has transcended just Catholics, just Christians. You have people of all different religions who have been captured by Pope Francis. And when you listen to his essential message, it's basically the same message of Reverend Green. It is the same message. It comes down to the fundamentals of the Bible: compassion, doing justice, doing the right thing, treating one another the way you would want to be treated, repentance, forgiveness, non-judgmentalism, non-discrimination, helping those who are less fortunate. That's Pope Francis's gospel. And it's so refreshing. I'm a Roman Catholic. It's so refreshing because in some ways it's so simple. It's so direct. It's so clear. That's what Jesus was about. Jesus was not complicated. Jesus was simple. We complicate what he says. Well, maybe he really meant this, but no, he meant what he said. Do the right thing. Do the right thing. We're brothers and we're sisters. Treat each other that way. And Pope Francis is bringing that all across the globe, and he's going to bring it to New York, and there's an opportunity for us. Because the essential message is do justice. Do justice. Now, when you say justice today, in this society, what do people think? Criminal justice. Oh, justice, you mean police. You mean jail time. You mean the justice system. That's one form of justice, criminal justice. That form of justice we do exquisitely well as a society, if you want to call it that. We lock up more people in prison than any industrialized nation on the globe, believe it or not. We spend more money to keep a young man in prison than it would have cost to send them to Harvard University for an education. That has our priorities backwards. But I'm not talking about that type of justice. That's not the justice that Martin Luther King spoke about. It's not the justice that John Kennedy spoke about. It's not the justice that Jesus spoke about. He spoke about a justice among people. He spoke about social justice and racial justice and economic justice. And that's what Reverend Green is speaking about. And that's what Pope Francis is speaking about. Social justice. How do we treat one another? Does everyone have the same opportunity in the community? Are we seeing past color of skin to content of character? Are we offering a society that says everyone has a chance to make their way up? We're not there yet. We're not there yet. You can see it in all different aspects of society. You can see it in our education system, which is everything more and more and more important, because if a young person doesn't have an education today, they're not going to dig their way out of poverty. They're not going to do it with labor. They're going to have to do it with this, which means they're going to need the education. And the truth is we have two education systems in this state, one for the rich and one for the poor, and they are separate and unequal. We talk about racial justice. Are we all treated the same? Have we fulfilled Martin Luther King's promise of looking past the color of skin? The answer is no. Discrimination is alive and well. Hurts to say it, but if we don't admit it, we'll never solve it. We discriminate in housing. We discriminate in lending. We discriminate in employment. We discriminate. There is no doubt about it. The relations between minority communities and the police are more stressed today than they have been probably in my lifetime. And it's not just New York. It's everywhere. It's all across the country. You turn on the TV set, you see the same story over and over and over again. Minority community, or segments of it, not trusting the police. Well, who's right and who's wrong? It almost doesn't matter. Because if you don't have that trust, you don't have anything. If you don't trust the justice system to do justice, then it doesn't work. The perception of the lack of trust is the problem. And they're talking about it all across the country, and everybody's defensive. Everybody's defensive. Police are defensive. Minority community is defensive, and nobody's doing anything. And it just keeps getting worse. And you turn on the TV now, it's like on instant replay. You see the same story, just the names change. Every week. And there's another march, and there's more violence. We did something in New York. And we said, if the police kill an unarmed person, or a person who there is a question as to whether or not they are armed, then the district attorney should not do that case because they have a close relationship with the police. We're going to have a special prosecutor do that case who's got no relation to the police, the Attorney General of the state of New York, Eric Schneiderman. So I'm proud of what we did, and I believe that's going to be a model for the nation. And I believe people are going to follow New York. And now we want to take the next step, which is economic justice. New census numbers just came out that track incomes. Since 2007, median income, average income, has actually gone down 7%. You wonder why there's economic anxiety and why people are unhappy? Because middle-class people are going backwards, that's why. It's not that they're wrong, they're right. They're going backwards. Number of people in poverty, unchanged for 4 years, still 15%. Despite all this wealth, Despite all the big houses and all the wealth, poverty is still the same. How do we do something about it? Well, government can do something about it. We set the minimum wage. The minimum wage was started by FDR. The minimum wage, FDR's point was a wage that doesn't just allow you to exist, but provides a decent living. That was his word, a decent living. The minimum wage today is $8.75. It's about $18,000 a year. You tell me how to live on $18,000 a year in this state of New York. Cost of housing is about $11,000 a year. Food is about $9,000. Clothing is about $6,000. The numbers don't add up. It's simple math. The minimum wage does not work. You can't make it. Forget what FDR said on a better lifestyle. And I'll tell you to add insult to injury. We just finished a study with the fast food companies like McDonald's, Burger King. You work at McDonald's, you get minimum wage. You get minimum wage, you are still below the poverty line. So you still qualify for government assistance. So you work at minimum wage at McDonald's, they give you $8.75 an hour. Then you go to the government office and you get food stamps, welfare payment, because you're still poor. That means we are subsidizing McDonald's to pay their workers a low wage, and we are then compensating with taxpayers' dollars. McDonald's made like $4 billion last year. Why do they need you subsidizing their workers? Why do they need New York State subsidizing their workers? I want to get out of the hamburger business. I don't even buy McDonald's. Let McDonald's pay a decent wage rather than being subsidized. So we want to raise the minimum wage. And we want to raise the minimum wage to $15. Now, this, my friends, is going to be a challenge. Why? Because the companies don't want to pay the workers more. Why? Because if the company pays the workers more, then the companies make less money. There's less profit, less profit, less profit. I know there's less profit, but there's something called fairness and equity and justice and justice. And that's what we're asking for. Justice, you'll hear from Pope Francis, you've heard from Reverend Green, is all through the words of our Lord. But let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream. From Amos, the Lord loves the just, Psalm 37. What does the Lord require of you? To act justly, Micah. It keeps coming back and back and back. We are going to do justice. And we're going to pass $15 an hour. It's going to take every person in this room to make it happen. Reverend Green is going to have to give me a special blessing to give me the strength to make it happen. But we are going to fight the good fight, and we are going to make it happen. And then we're going to hold up that victory. And we're going to say to the rest of this country, you look at New York. You want to see a place that acts justly? You look at the Empire State. The state of New York will tell you what's fair, will tell you what's just, will tell you how to take care of all your people in society so everyone is part of the same community, sharing and benefiting, and that makes the strongest community. That makes the strongest city and the strongest state when everyone feels involved. That's what I promised Reverend Green when he gave me his support, that I would do my best 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, to make life better for the people in this state and to bring justice and fairness and opportunity to every New Yorker. And that's what we have been doing, And with this $15 an hour, you ain't seen nothing yet. Thank you, and God bless you.